The world suffers from intolerance and bigotry. Calm consideration, questioning dogmas, and freedom of mind are needed in our complex society. A great deal of harm is being done in the modern world by the belief in the virtuousness of work, and the road to happiness and prosperity lies in an organized diminution of work. The morality of work is the morality of slaves, and the modern world has no need of slavery. The wise use of leisure is a product of civilization and education. Only foolish asceticism makes us continue to insist on excessive work now that the need no longer exists. Moving matter about, though necessary, is not one of the ends of human life. We have been misled by preaching the dignity of labor to keep the poor content and the pleasure in mechanism, but these do not make a great appeal to the actual worker. The modern man thinks that everything ought to be done for the sake of something else and never for its own sake. We think too much of production and too little of consumption. One result is that we attach too little importance to enjoyment and simple happiness. Knowledge everywhere is coming to be regarded not as a good in itself or as a means of creating a broad and humane outlook on life in general, but as merely an ingredient in technical skill. If a leisured population is to be happy, it must be an educated population and must be educated with a view to mental enjoyment as well as to the direct usefulness of technical knowledge. A habit of finding pleasure in thought rather than in action is a safeguard against unwisdom and excessive love of power, a means of preserving serenity in misfortune and peace of mind among worries. But this solution obviously could only be temporary. The subscribers to German loans wanted their interest, and there was the same dilemma about paying the interest as there had been about paying the indemnity. The modern revolt against reason seeks power, not salvation, differing from past revolts. Its aim, articulated by Nietzsche and echoed by Hitler, values the greatness of exceptional individuals, diverging from the tradition of Christian civilization and rational pursuits. The irrational elements in the Nazi philosophy are due, politically speaking, to the need of enlisting the support of sections which have no longer any raison d'être, while the comparatively sane elements are due to the industrialists and militarists. The rejection of humility, of love of one's neighbor, and of the rights of the meek is contrary to gospel teaching, and anti-Semitism, when it is theoretical as well as practical, is not easily reconciled with a religion of Jewish origin. The fever of nationalism, a cult of unreason, abandons universal truth. Rationality, appealing to a universal standard, is vital for human well-being, even in times it's despised. The inevitable effects of artificial molding upon the individual are to produce either cruelty or listlessness, perhaps both in alternation. And from a population with these characteristics, no good thing is to be expected. The ultimate psychological argument for democracy and for patience is that an element of free growth, of go-as-you-please and untrained natural living, is essential if men are not to become misshapen monsters. The labor that went into the making of my machines failed to result in the production of useful commodities and was as completely wasted as if it had consisted of throwing sand into the sea. There is one further very important reason for the failure of the profit motive in the present day, and that is the failure of scarcity. The desire for wealth is, in most cases, due to a desire for security. Economic security would do more to increase the happiness of civilized communities than any other change that can be imagined, except the prevention of war. Art and literature suffer under the commercial motive, hindering creative expression and favoring profit over quality. Socialism's impact on publishing should balance accessibility with a discerning process to encourage meaningful contributions. The roots of war lie in economic interests, with industries such as iron and steel fostering nationalism and militarization for profit. True peace requires fundamental economic reconstruction to eliminate these causes of enmity between nations. Socialism is not a doctrine for the proletariat only. By preventing economic insecurity and first-class wars, it is calculated to increase the happiness of all but a handful of the richest people, contributing to the well-being of the whole world. The Romans seem to have invented the virtue of devotion to the impersonal state as opposed to loyalty to the person of the ruler. The Roman conception of devotion to the state has been an essential element in the production of stable government in the West. Science has only lately begun to foster the growth of new moral ideas through the liberation of benevolence from the shackles of superstitious ethical beliefs. The effective religion of our age, insofar as it is not merely traditional, consists of patriotism. The average man is willing to sacrifice his life to patriotism and feels this moral obligation so imperative that no revolt appears to him possible. Patriotism is the chief curse of our age and will bring civilization to an end if it cannot be mitigated. A modern man, when misfortune assails him, is conscious of himself as a unit in a statistical total. The past and the future stretch before him in a dreary procession of trivial defeats. Uniformity in the physical apparatus of life may be no grave matter, but uniformity in thought and opinion is much more dangerous. It produces a population capable of peaceable cooperation but prone to persecution of minorities. The necessary friendliness cannot be preserved by self-control alone. No rules, however wise, are a substitute for affection and tact. At all times, a man should feel that there are matters of importance for which he lives and that his death, or the death of wife or child, does not put an end to all that interests him in the world. In adolescence, large impersonal interests should be set before the young, and education should be so conducted as to give them the idea of living for purposes outside themselves. Discipline is best when it springs from an inner impulse. The child must feel the ambition to achieve something difficult suggested by someone in the environment. Even self-discipline depends, in the end, upon an educational stimulus. Matter has become altogether too ghostly to be used as an adequate stick with which to beat the mind. The world consists of events, not of things that endure for a long time and have changing properties. There can be no reason for supposing that either a piece of mind or a piece of matter is immortal.